discuss those items that were sent around. We don't have any. I contacted DOT with regard to the information that they had indicated they were going to send us by this month, which we have not received anything. I talked to him the other day, and he was going to contact so-called the higher ups to see if they had any additional information to provide with us, bearing the information that they had told us that they're going to send us. For example, like the risk assessment data, number one, and they're going to send us also review of the public comments for Manresa.
Why don't we formally start the meeting?
Yeah. All right.
Here.
Do we have is the secretary here for?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. That was my next question. Is the secretary on?
I don't see her, but we could always send her the meeting afterwards and have her.
Okay, this is recording, Brian? It's being recorded, right? Yeah. Okay, good. All right, well then why don't we go ahead and just, is Jeff on?
Yeah, Jeff is on. He's on his phone and he's on the picture too.
Oh, okay.
So
I don't think Jeff has audio.
No.
Right.
Jeff, hit *6 and you should unmute. There you go.
Thank you. Thanks, Brian.
Okay.
Why don't you start the official meeting?
Okay. All right. Well, if the official meeting of the application review committee is.
John, let me open up the meeting altogether and then we'll go into application review.
Fine.
Okay, because this is a combination meeting as we've done the last several times. So I want to call to order the meeting at 5:02 and let's do the pledge. And Alan, why don't you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the
To
flag
the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic
for which it
which
stands,
one nation,
nation,
under God, indivisible,
With liberty.
liberty and justice for all. As you work.
So now I'm going to read off the names because the stenographer is not here. From the Harbor Commission at this moment, we have John Pinto, John Romano, Dennis Santella, Tony Mobilia, Jeff Mangles, Alan Kibbe, and Matt Gifford. From the Shellfish Commission, we have Peter Johnson, our consultant Jeff Stedman so far, and as people come in, we'll make note of it to add to the
John, Chris McDonald. Chris McDonald's also on the line. John, Chris McDonald's also on the line.
And Chris McDonald is online as well. So that's the roll call, and I'll turn the meeting over to application review now.
All right. No, thank you, John. We had a series of standing discussion items that we had put forth on the application review. I've indicated that on the agenda. I don't know if we need to discuss each one of those, but I had requested DOT send us additional information, which they had promised us from last month's meeting with regard to acquiring the risk assessment data from the vessel relocation test trial that they had in June, and also the additional information from the public comment for Manresa. And as I said, Sam Ratchek was contacted and indicated that he would contact the so-called higher ups that had perhaps that additional information, and he would send that to us, which we have not received. So I think in lieu of that, maybe we could go ahead and sort of make some, have some discussion with regard to the various action items that we have placed on the agenda. And the first one we can certainly talk about is the relocation of the Maritime Aquarium and Seaport Association excursion vessel. And as you know, that they had a risk assessment. They had a trial run with regard to docking of the vessels. And they were also requested to have some sort of risk assessment data to submit to us, which they have not done as yet. So I think maybe in discussion, we could, if anyone has any issues, any points that they want to bring up, we can discuss this.
Well, I know Bruce Lavallo was supposed to join us tonight in lieu of Matt Scully. His mom just passed away.
Yes.
And, but I know that Scully and Lavallo were very emphatic about the safety of the boats in between the bridges. So that is a non-starter as far as I think we're concerned based on their assessment.
You got one other thing though is, you got cranes there, you got barges there. Isn't there an OSHA rule that, you know, you have to have a buffer zone? They're going to be right up against where those boats are.
Well, that certainly is a continued issue as far as we're concerned, and so is the harbor master's review of the situation is certainly concerned about that. And I hope perhaps the Coast Guard is also concerned about that as well, as we have to. We've already discussed that with them. Back in early, I think it was January. We had a meeting.
They're going to be moving people out of the apartments because of the crane.
Well, yes and no. They said that on certain occasions they will have to, for about a 1 week period of time, might have to evacuate the people in that area. But for the most part, in the general working construction, they probably are not. You know, it's part of the day-to-day operation.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the overall safety issue is. They do this all. I mean, this type of construction often goes on in New York City. You know, around an area, you know, building on top of buildings, et cetera, where they have people walking around, but they do have a so-called a buffer zone, a walkway on the outside of the work zone, certainly to concern with. But
But you can't move a live load over pedestrians or
Yeah.
excursion vessels. It has to be restricted when you're moving things overhead.
that's correct. You know, and Jeff had sent me, and Jeff is here now. Jeff had sent me an article. Yes, an article from this, I guess, work that was done at the New London dock. And the Coast Guard had some discussion with regard to some of the construction and narrowing of the channel there, where they had requested a risk assessment. Jeff, you want to address that?
Well, just two things, John. To be fair to DOT, we did ask, you know, a long time ago for them to provide a professionally prepared navigational risk assessment. Now they say that they are doing that.
That's
so
correct.
I think that we would want to see that and before making any, you know, another formal statement to DOT or to DEEP, I mean.
Right.
And so we'll look at that. But the issue is interesting in New London. It's a comment by Lieutenant Sheehy, the same person who's reviewing this proposal, the Walk Bridge proposal for safety-related impacts. But her response to the gigantic project to redevelop the state pier is that the Coast Guard is going to want to see a navigational risk assessment having to do with the vessels that would operate from the state pier, because the channel width would be restricted somewhat.
Right.
So it's really her comment was really could potentially apply to this project, but we'll and the Coast Guard also mentioned to us that that they would. I say the Coast Guard mentioned, I forget whether it was the New York Coast Guard person or Lieutenant Sheehy, that they would give significant weight to the harbor master's recommendation and also the police department's recommendation. So we need to, and that there's also the possibility of the Coast Guard holding a public hearing specifically on this issue as part of the permit process. So those are all things that are part of the process, but I think we would want to see what the DOT comes up with with respect to a risk assessment, and then provide our comments after that to DEEP.
That's correct. Yeah.
And we don't necessarily. I don't know what DEP's schedule is for evaluating this application, but we did inform them that they should anticipate that we could provide our comments not all in one submittal, but we could provide comments at different times. So we might want to comment on the vessel relocation plan separately than we do on other aspects of it. But it all depends on when we get the information that we've requested.
Well, it'll probably be another month then.
Right, because we don't have anything to act on tonight.
Right. No, but I thought it's just something that's certainly worthwhile discussing because, as I said, there's going to be a number of issues that we're going to be flooded with.
But I'll stop in a minute, John, but a significant matter, though, is when does DEEP anticipate putting out a public notice on this application? And it's our understanding that they would consider our comments and evaluate, that DEEP would evaluate our comments before they put out that public notice with a tentative determination to approve the project. So if we wait another 30 days, you know, I'm sure the DOT is anxious to get that notice released. And we're expecting that won't be released until we have a chance to provide comments and DEEP evaluates our comments.
Well, certainly it's a matter of timing. I appreciate that, but you know, what do we do in the interim? I guess just sit in abeyance here and do nothing?
Well, perhaps if we do get information in the next couple of weeks and we know that DEEP is being rushed to put out a public notice, we could always have a special meeting. But I guess that's not something we need to make a decision on now.
Right. Well, I guess, again, as far as our own consideration of the whole project of this relocation project, I think we sort of stand pat on our previous disagreement with the positioning of the vessels between the positioning of the vessels between the bridges.
Well, but there's also a significant matter in that we've taken the position, and so is the harbor master, that the harbor master has the sole authority regarding the stationing of vessels in the interest of public safety. And so how does that interpretation of the statute that we've put forward potentially conflict with DEEP's permitting authority? And if they overrule, if the harbor master finds that as he has to date, that it's an unacceptable risk to public safety, can DEEP overrule his finding in that matter? And
well,
we don't know the answer to that yet.
We don't know the answer to that, but we got a sort of a tentative response to that when we met with Mr. Grislinski probably about 8-9 months ago.
Well, he said we'll wait and see what happens when the time comes, as I recall.
No, he said that with DEP now being in control of the harbor masters, that there was a suggestion that they might be able to, that they would overrule the harbor master's authority.
Well,
Well, doesn't the Coast Guard, I believe, issues the final permit at the end of all of this process? The Coast Guard bridge permit is, all of this feeds into their process, and the Coast Guard could overrule DEEP. So
I don't believe that's the case. The state permit is separate from the federal permit. So when federal permits are issued, like the Corps of Engineers permit, it makes clear that this federal permit does not absolve the applicant from obtaining all other necessary legal approvals. So the state permit is separate. And if they get well, that's something to work out. But my feeling is that the harbor master's authority is something we want to uphold, and we have to do that through the state permit process. The harbor master is a state official, right, not a federal official. And if they get a Corps of Engineers permit or a federal permit, that doesn't mean that doesn't overrule the state permit. Doesn't mean the state has to give them their permit.
All right. Well,
that's my opinion.
Yeah. No, I think that's correct, Jeff.
But I think the point I was trying to make was that the project.
I guess Chris wanted to. Chris,
The point I was trying to make was that the project can't go forward without a Coast Guard approval. So if the Coast Guard, heeds the harbor master's warning about this situation, and DEEP doesn't, the project still doesn't go forward.
That's correct too. That's correct too, because all those permits are needed.
Well, we're going to have to just, I guess, wait and see, and we'll just hold an abeyance until we hear information. I'll stay in contact with Chris to see if we can get some of that information from him. Perhaps if it has to come before the next meeting, then maybe we can have a special meeting to address that issue. All right. Well, let's move on. If there's any other questions, any other concerns with regard to that issue, please can have a discussion about that. Anyone else, perhaps from the commission? All right. All right, well, not hearing any, let's move on. We had the second item that the DOT had mentioned to us was that they were planning to build a bulkhead at the locations of the staging that they had originally planned, which was 68 Water Street and 90 Water Street, and to build a bulkhead after the project had been completed. And we wanted to figure out what was the need for the bulkhead after the fact. That is, if it wasn't required for the actual construction process, what was the purpose of having that bulkhead on the property? And they had mentioned that there was a need to enhance the property value of that. And that was certainly of a concern here, is why the DOT would want to enhance the property value of a private, I guess that's a privately owned property. Is the city planning to buy that? Are they planning to sell it? The DOT planning to buy it? I don't know what the issue on that is. So that's information that is certainly forthcoming.
Well, John, I put my 2 cents in again, but in the meeting we had recently with the DOT project team, where we heard the presentation by the contractor of the construction sequence.
Right.
He clearly stated that the building of the bulkhead on the 2 properties is not related to the bridge project.
That's correct. And it would be done. It would be done after the fact.
But it's not a project that's functional or necessary for the bridge project. Now, in the revised permit application, that revised permit application seems to indicate the same thing. That the purpose of this is to improve the value of the properties for water-dependent development.
Right.
Now, in the more recent meeting we had with the Shellfish Commission, the DOT representative said that the bulkhead was a contingency in case that they do need to use those properties for a storage yard of some sort. So that brings up a significant question that I think we should be able to comment on.
Well, there's also that issue. There's also the outstanding possibility that they will not get Manresa. That's certainly still up in the air as well. So this is all part of the same continuum.
Well, we have to look at it carefully, John, though, because in the initial application, where they didn't presume that they were going to use Manresa Island, the bulkhead that they're talking about on those 2 properties was going to be built at the end of the project, which again indicated that it wasn't essential for the project. So we need information on that, because if it is in fact a bulkhead that's intended to enhance the value of those properties, then maybe we want to argue that instead of enhancing the value of private properties, the money that would go into that would be better spent enhancing the value of a public property, such as the visitor's dock.
Right, right.
And then there's also the issue of that one of those properties is the site of an outstanding violation that's was notified in 1999. That's never been corrected.
That's correct.
And then the other property also has an interesting history in that a structural bulkhead was
Denied.
proposed there some years ago, and DEP denied it, saying it wasn't appropriate for that property for different reasons. So that's another aspect of the application that we would want to take a careful look at, I think.
Well, I think what the DOT might be doing here is covering all their bases, because perchance they don't get Manresa Island, that area is going to be certainly up for use for the staging.
Well, so we'll see, John.
Yeah, well, that's again another we'll see, but again, incomplete information all the way around. Well, those are those two issues are certainly still pending, right? And then does anyone have any additional comments on that? Anything?
John, I had one quick question about the Manresa Island.
Yeah.
And I guess it kind of ties together some of the issues about the buffer zone for the crane area around the Maritime Center, as well as the 68 and 90. There has to be some type of time frame from a legal standpoint that DEEP or others put this out for public review. Doesn't that have to come into play? Because I just fear that, as you mentioned a little earlier, that we're kind of in this wait and see game, and then all of a sudden it's going to be too late and they're going to push something forward.
Well,
Is there some type of schedule that they've kind of laid out that we can at least look at and?
I have a sneaking suspicion, Matt, that this is their modus operandi, because it's always been that way where it's,
That's what I'm getting at. Yeah.
they've always played that game where it's all of a sudden last minute, we're at the 11th hour, and all of a sudden we have to make a quick decision based on public interest or based on a timing issue that they've had. And I'm not sure if that's what's going on right now. I don't know.
I mean, my overriding, because I know just enough about this, to discuss it at some of these levels. And from some of the meetings that I've been at and some of the open forums, it just seems like there's enough ambiguity for them to get around some issues. And then when push comes to shove, I'm just afraid that it's going to be steamrolled through and, the public discussion and or the harbor master and or, harbor commission and or others are going to have their say completely downsided or downplayed, at least in the overall, final decision.
Of public interest. That's correct. Or, the state moving forward with the project. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I don't know how we can buffer that or safeguard.
It's just kind of comical. I know a number of us are involved with commercial construction, and there's just so many rules and regulations on timing of when you have to do certain things. And basically, most of us involved with that will do deduce a timeline that we have to get certain things done by certain points, and it just doesn't seem like they have any requirements here.
Well, I think the problem that the DOT has right now, there's so many different moving parts, and there's still some uncertainties with regard to where, number one, where the location of staging is going to be. At one time, they were planning to do it right adjacent to where the Neptune Boat Club was, and all of a sudden it was switched over to the 68 and 90 Water Street area. And then with instigation, a little bit of instigation from the Harbor Commission, is possibly other areas outside the city zone, for example, in the proximity, right in the middle of South Norwalk, to use Manresa Island because of the berthing capability of the barges in that area. And that would have been certainly a win-win situation for there. But again, that's still all up in the air. So I think right now, with so many moving parts that they're doing, it seems that they're hedging all their bets and keeping every option open. And right now, we don't know which one they plan to use because, again, things have been formalized. Number one, with the positioning of the vessels between the docks, and also the because that also has a bearing on the use of Water Street area, because that was their plan B to move the vessels from between the bridges and to have them staged at the 68 and 90 Water Street, and then with docking and boarding of passengers perhaps at the visitors dock. That was one other option that they proposed. So you have all these different possibilities, and which one we could work on it. It's one time.
John, why don't we go on record regularly about the items we're missing, the things that haven't been decided that we're waiting for, and just to have a paper trail of things that haven't been decided that we're expected to just make a recommendation on.
Alan, the list here that I gave as the agenda, I specifically indicated to Chris that this is the additional information that we were waiting on. And number one was the risk assessment data that they had for the vessel mooring, and then also the review of the public comment from Manresa, which is still up in the air with regard to even the use of Manresa. And also one of the major issues that we're still confronting is how they're going to dovetail with Eversource and the of the vessels, the commission lines, transmission lines under the harbor. So all that has to come into play. It seems like there's so many different moving targets right now. What time and the timing is certainly very important for each one of those. So it's like, I agree with you, Matt. I don't know how we can sort of pin this down. We did go on record indicating that this is the information that we would need, and so he has that in an email that we had sent.
Is it something that maybe, and I don't want to blow this out of proportion, but is it something that maybe we bring up at a city level, that we as a city commission are concerned about the repercussions of no decision being made or no information being shared, so that the city's aware of it, so that if they have any ability to discuss this or have any leverage or anything like that, at least it gives us some positioning to not just say, well, we kept asking for answers and they never gave us answers, but to go back to, some level of the city and say, listen, we're kind of in a crossroads here, and we're concerned about the impact for South Norwalk, for the navigable channel, for the, the bridge area, for, East Norwalk, for any of the areas down there, getting down to any of the other specific residential spots that are going to be potentially in the way of the Manresa area or anywhere on Water Street. I mean, they've got these massive apartment complexes that they've approved and pushed forward through for South Norwalk all along Water Street. I mean, there's so many young people and people moving into that area, and all of a sudden this is going to be right on their doorstep. And I'm just afraid that it's going to come back to haunt us, that we didn't have as much impact on pushing this in a direction to best the city and the use of the harbor that we're commissioned to discuss, and it's going to be too late.
Well, you sort of hit another nerve, so to speak, with regard to our association with how the city views it and how we view it. I'm sure, and I've already made inquiries with regard to that. Number one, the Eversource project, and a letter was sent to the mayor's office, and the letter was sent to Mr. Cole at Eversource, indicating again what projects how they plan to proceed with the transmission line tunneling, and under the harbor. And we got a sort of a pushback on that, indicating that they're not ready to reveal any information. And and
John, could I say something?
Yeah,
Matt's comment is a good one, because
yes,
we wrote to DEEP after the last meeting that we had hoped to get comments to DEEP after this meeting tonight, but we don't have information, and we don't have recommendations to submit. So I think we should probably write to DEEP again and reiterate our understanding that DEEP will not issue a public notice on this until we have a chance to provide comments and we get the additional information promised by DOT. Now, when DEEP issues its public notice, that will be for a period, at that time, they will have determined that they think they can approve the project, and they'll be seeking public comments on it, and there'll be a 30-day public comment period. And there's also a provision for a public hearing that they must hold if they get a petition signed by 25 people, which would give us additional time to review this. And they could also determine, DOT could, to request a public hearing themselves at the outset to try to make the process go a little faster. And now they've also engaged in the Federal Corps of Engineers permit. So the Corps of Engineers is likely to put out a public notice seeking comment on the proposal before DEEP does now. And there's the Coast Guard permit process as well, which has a provision for public hearing, as we mentioned before. And then there's Eversource. And Eversource has two approvals that they need. They need an approval from the Siting Council, which could involve a public hearing. And in fact, I think it's our understanding that it will. And Eversource needs permits from the Corps of Engineers and the DEP. And that we had originally understood that the Eversource approval was critical for the DOT project to move forward. But at the last meeting, we heard that wasn't so critical, that DOT can still go ahead even if Eversource doesn't get their permits first.
that's right.
So there's 5 different permit processes, each with a potential for a public hearing. But anyway, that's just
Jeff,
going on to talk about how complicated it is.
we can always address that, but the thing is, it seems, as far as the DOT is concerned, and there's been comment we've heard at previous meetings, that when they talk about, well, the commission has a concern and then the city has a concern. What I'd like to see is that the city's concern is our concern, and that they had treated us sort of as the focal point rather than individuals perhaps who've been working directly with Eversource in DPW.
Excuse me, there's one thing though. Before they can really do anything, they have to get that communication cable underwater first.
Well,
in order.
Well, yes, that's correct, and I think there's a little caveat here. I think, Peter, because they could still carry out work, but they'd have to get those transmission lines certainly moved. But remove them from the towers would probably not necessary. They can dismantle them, instead of take them out of commission, but the wires to remain there, but they're not energized, so to speak. But then they still have relocate those wires underneath the harbor.
But
So-
the thing is, you can't de-energize those wires.
Well, no,
Now you're gonna stop feeding South Norwalk?
no. They'd have, Eversource has got to carry out that project prior to they do any kind of, first, Eversource has got to get those wires certainly relocated and re-energized somewhere under the harbor.
Right. Well, as soon as they get that community cable done, they're gonna want Eversource to be gone
Well,
because they can't go any farther.
Peter, they can still dismantle, decommission those wires. They're still there in place. The construct is there. They can take those towers down at any time, but those wires are still hanging there. Am I wrong or no? But yet the wires are energized under the harbor. It's a matter of how you count the construction.
Well, I know for those lines feed East Norwalk, South Norwalk, Darien, Glenbrook. I mean, you're talking main 115 kV feeders. For them to be moved, they got to have their cable underground.
Right. There's no scenario where they sever the link across the Norwalk River without replacing a link to the south.
Right.
So they can't build the towers of the new bridge until the Eversource cables are de-energized.
That's correct. So they would.
That's their hang-up. That's when it becomes critical path for the construction project.
That's correct. But
so they can start doing the caisson work. They can relocate the communication cables, which are lower on the height, which are lower on the tower over the river. But they're not going to be able to remove. And I think at some point the towers get in the way of the approach structures as well. So the new approach to the bridge, the towers have to come down in order to realign the tracks for the new bridge. So that also doesn't happen until the high towers, until they're not just Eversource is de-energized, but they have removed all the wires and taken down the high towers. So
well, you're misunderstanding this, Chris, because if I can understand this, they have a splice point which is right behind the police station. Am I
correct?
Yeah. So they can relocate those wires right now. They can take those and then there's no energy going from the wires from the police station over to the to the east side of town, over
right.
So those wires and that construct can still stay there, but they re-energize those wires under the harbor. So they can do anything once they do that. And I would imagine they would want to do this soon. That done.
They do it. Eversource's, the DOT, signed over their critical path to Eversource. The Eversource is going to do the design and execute that work that the whole bridge project is dependent on. So it's out of the DOT's hands. That was a decision they made in 2017 that Eversource would do all this work and go to the siting council and PURA and all that kind of stuff and get it moved. Because the DOT had looked at different things, running it up to Oyster Shell Park and over the river and down by the, different things, aerial relocations, underground relocations. And Eversource said, yeah, we pick the Elizabeth Street under the harbor to, I think they're going all the way to Fort Point Street to go back on the Metro North alignment.
That's correct.
For the work. So,
but what I'm
still,
they can do that at any time soon. They can do that at any time soon, but the wires can still remain, and the DOT can carry out their functioning on the bridge because those wires are energized. Am I correct, or am I incorrect on that?
Correct. There's a point where the operating those cranes near the overhead wires is not allowed, and also the realignment of the approaches to the bridge because of the towers themselves.
Right.
So even once Eversource is done and everything's turned off, then it's still quite a job to get those wires down and get the high towers down.
Well,
So
the DOT have to do that, or could do that, or does Eversource still have to do that as well?
I think the DOT will have to remove all the wires from the towers and dismantle the towers.
Once they've been de-energized. So they can,
Once they've been de-energized, yes.
So DOT can go ahead with their project, even though those so-called the wires, although they're not energized, are still up there. They can carry out the project.
Correct.
And that's what they mentioned, that they can be a year and a half into the project before Eversource is actually needed. All right, but Eversource has to relocate those lines well in advance for power to continue across the harbor. So
Correct.
So we're gonna have to wait for that.
Actually, John, if I can interrupt, how can DOT utilize the properties on South Water Street for the purposes that they envision using them now if Eversource hasn't completed the drilling of the cables underneath the river, if Eversource sticks to its current plan?
That's a good question, Jeff. I asked that
and
last
and
month.
Also that the commission is on record as stating its opposition to the route that so far that we've heard that Eversource plans to follow, which is underneath the city docks.
That's correct.
So those are all issues that still have to be worked out.
So Eversource wouldn't have to occupy the entire lot. They would do either the drilling or receiving pit within that footprint of those two lots on Water Street. So yes, it would be in the way. I don't know if the DOT, if they want to use it as the erection yard, it would be a lot in the way. You know, if they're doing something smaller. And the other thing I recall them saying is if they're not allowed, and I don't remember whether it was them or us or somebody else saying that if they're not allowed to have the boats between the two bridges, that those vessels could be relocated to the waterfront there and not across the river to the visitors dock. So it'd be more proximate to, to parking and to the pedestrian traffic and more, walkable from the seaport, the aquarium, which was all desirable things for the operators.
Yes.
But was I mistaken in thinking that did that come from the DOT that they might use those properties for the vessels, or was that?
Yeah, that was their option B, I believe.
Right.
But
so that would require bulkhead improvements at the beginning too. And I think using it for the erection required bulkhead improvements at the beginning. I don't know.
The original proposal had a sheet pile steel bulkhead on those properties, and that the bulkhead along the edge of the properties that would essentially enhance the value of the properties for redevelopment was something that they would do at the end of the project,
right,
after they removed all the stuff that they would put in, during the project. But the current application, the revised application, and we should clarify this, talks about using those properties to dock the boats, but not to pick up and discharge the passengers.
That's correct.
If we read it correctly. They would put the boats down there, and then when they had to pick up the passengers, they would go back up, above the Straffolino Bridge and pick up the passengers, and that's where they would discharge them. But they would dock overnight the boats down at the Water Street properties. So these are all. I mean, these are discussing this for 5 years. Might we write a letter to Grzywinski or to the DEP and tell him, look, we had anticipated getting comments to you after this meeting. However, we don't have the requested risk assessment for the vessel relocation plan, and we do not have information from Eversource, even though we invited an Eversource representative to come to the meeting. So now we anticipate getting our comments to you after the October meeting. And if you intend to issue a public notice before then, please, we ask that you not until you receive our comments and review them. Just so he knows that we're not delaying. We couldn't act on it tonight because we don't have Eversource and we don't have the other stuff.
I'd like to carry forward on Matt's suggestion that we incorporate the city. Certainly, maybe it's the mayor, maybe it's someone on the Common Council who's been close to the project at hand, but somewhere along the line, and maybe the DPW, to let them know that these are the items that we are certainly on top of, and that we are looking out for the city's interest with regard to this entire Norwalk Bridge project. You know,
Well,
not
we've been copying the city and the mayor and the various departments all along just to keep.
No, we only did that, John, for the Eversource project that I recall.
Right, but I'm just saying, big picture, they should be copied on everything that goes out from our commission, just whether they read it or file it or what, at least we're on record that that's the position that we've taken. That's number one.
Right.
Number two, I don't know how we could make any determinations whatsoever, nor should we be apologizing for it. I mean, we haven't received the proper information that was asked for, period. So there's no elongated guesstimate on our part
Right.
to how we should answer stuff that hasn't been presented.
Well, I agree with you, John. I don't think that we should be the one to apologize. You know, we only have to act on what we have. And we don't seem to be the weak link in this whole project here. No.
Ron, the last time you communicated this, our needs, did you ever get a response from anyone? You said you sent it in an email. Did anybody answer?
Yeah, the only one was a response from Ian Cole from Eversource. That was more of a formal letter with their overall intent. And so that letter went to I think everyone in the state of Connecticut that we thought went to the Coast Guard, went to Army Corps, it went to the mayor's office, went to DPW. So it went out to a variety of groups of people there, and it also went out to the siting council. But we
I think it's important for us to reiterate all the information we're missing and
Yes.
be a pain about it. I mean, if you send it after every one of these Harbor Commission meetings and copy everybody in the city, the mayor and all, so that
we
it's very
definitely
clear that we don't have what we need to do anything.
Well, we definitely have the construct of a variety of letters that we can put into one general letter and send that out to the DEP. If that's the commission's wish, we'll certainly do that. Put that all together and send it out to the mayor's office. Send it out to maybe a common council member to see, let them know what was going on and what the commission is trying to do here anyway to protect the city's interest in this overall project.
I think we should compile a bunch of letters that we've sent out and requests that were made, and just with a response that these items on our agenda were not, other than discussion, we couldn't take any actions based on no pertinent information inputted, period. And let them know that, we're trying to move their projects forward, the state and others and Eversource included, but without having the information for us to be the stewards of the harbor, there's nothing we can do, period.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't think there's anything that, we have application review, but there's nothing to review in applications. We have none in file. So let's just move on and just carry on with the rest of the meeting.
All
If
right.
there's letters and stuff that you want to put together, we can do it within committee between us
Do we
and.
need a motion to send a letter?
Well, that's what I'd like to do, Tony. You're right. Yes.
I'll make that if you want, John. And can I just add one other question, or can you attach any of those associated emails that we may have sent with our concerns as a a breadcrumb trail here of listen, we've been asking the right questions to all the right agencies, and we've been getting zero to no response from anybody. So before this becomes a nuclear bomb that happens in South Norwalk and everyone's pointing fingers at everybody, can we just get some clarity as to what we're looking at?
Yeah, well, I made that request to Mike Brzezinski. We sent him an outline of the information that we were looking for and hopefully would get in a timely manner. And I sent that not in the form of an email, but I sent that in the form of a letter. And I made that very plain to him as to why I wanted to send it in the form of a letter rather than an email. I wanted it to be a formal presentation to him. We did the same thing with regard to Eversource project. So we can put these letters together in one body with just direct the information to perhaps DEP or again informing the mayor, informing again other members of the city.
An information piece across the spectrum of all the suspects. Let's put it that way.
Well,
Who's the letter to?
The letter would probably go to Deep, certainly, even with a copy to DOT. we've been in close contact with them, and just sort of put them on notice that we haven't had received anything yet.
Not only that is that nothing should proceed from a deep approval process, or Eversource, or Siting Council, or any of these concerns that we have should proceed with hearings or anything until we've had a chance to vet it all out. That's the gist of what this should be all about, because we just haven't done it. And what Matt said, put that breadcrumb trail in there. And these are the series of letters that we've put together, and just get it out to the usual suspects.
I mean, I think the Common Council, someone mentioned earlier, I think that's a good point of, add to their to-do list, which I'm sure is a mile long. But, when they're pushing all these issues for all these transit-oriented districts and all this other stuff that they're doing in South Norwalk, in East Norwalk, and right on top of it is going to be this massive project that unfortunately is sneaking up on all of us.
You're absolutely right. It's a good point. Excellent point.
John, could I add something to the mix here?
Absolutely, Dan.
I agree with Matt. I think we don't want to get down to the wire and all of a sudden with their approach they would say, well, we don't have time to do anything. Us being the committee. In the letter, why don't we say we need 30 days, 60 days, whatever it is, to review the information and make a decision. And this way they know they just can't spring us on us in the last minute. Give them some head up on we need to have 30, 60 days, whatever, to make a good decision, or to review it and reject it or make it approved.
Jeff, let me refresh my memory again. Didn't the DEP have a limit? Was it 45 days on application?
No, John, but the issue is that remember the initial application to DEEP was submitted by DOT without the consultation forms from either the Harbor Commission or the Shellfish Commission. And then they submitted a revised application also without consultation with the Harbor Commission or the Shellfish Commission.
That's what Brzezlinski to request time to review those.
Yeah. And I think Dennis is right, though. I think we should once we specify the additional information that we need, we would ask for an additional. We would ask for 30 days but that time period. I think it was a 60-day time period
that's right.
that we were supposed to be given for pre-applications consultations. Right. But that's way past now.
Yes.
It's.
Yeah.
Congress all the time, reclaiming my time. Let's reclaim our time.
I got you. I agree, John.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. Matt, you want to put that in a matter of motion, and we have a chance to the commission to vote on it?
Yeah. What I'd like to say is, and I don't unfortunately want to put more on your to-do list, but to craft a letter to, DP and the associated agencies that we've reached out to over the last, 90 to 120 to 6 months, whatever your distance of letters has been and emails, and just put a staggered list of past attachments such as letters and emails for projects, project information that we've requested, whether it be from state agencies, whether it be from general contractors, architects, engineers, associated Eversource, whatever, anything included with this.
Yeah, we do have a paper trail. We do have a paper trail, Matt.
Yeah, and just basically list these as attachments that we sent out in, April, in June, and whatever the case might be, just so there can be some reference in the letter saying, our concern is that we're not getting any response or attention to these questions, and therefore we're limited in our capacity to understand the full scope of the project, understand the repercussions to the surrounding area, and make a decision in the best interest of Norwalk Harbor and the city of Norwalk.
Great.
And basically include whether it be a mayor, the city council, a couple others, because they're the people that are going to get voted in and voted out based on the chaos that's created from something like this. So it should be on their to-do list to take keep an eye out.
Great, excellent.
Do we need to make the statement that the application is incomplete because of the lack of these documents?
It would certainly be incomplete, yes, because we haven't got the information.
Well, but I think making that statement is you applications are rejected because they're incomplete, you know. And if we make that statement, if we're trying to get some cover for not having, you know, made a decision on things, then saying that the application is incomplete because of the lack of these documents that have been, you know, promised us by DOT and Eversource, then.
I mean, such as the drawings of where the boats are going to be laid out in this docking and, you know, wharf area to, you know, the study that they had promised us that doesn't seem to be, you know, really either completed or at least written up. I mean, these are critical components that unfortunately people are going to hold us accountable for either reviewing or not in 6 months or 6 years. And who knows if the project, at what point it's going to be in. So I think the point of this, or basically the motion, is to create a, you know, a letter going forward to announce to a number of different city and, you know, agencies that we've already discussed that we're concerned that our hands are getting tied and we don't have enough information to be able to understand the project, understand the scope that we're reviewing, and make any decisions as a commission we're supposed to be doing. And at this point, we don't want to be surprised, you know, in a situation upcoming that we now have, you know, 30 days to make a decision on, you know, 1,000 pages of documents that are all of a sudden available.
Right, yes.
And you can blame the new guy for asking.
Is there a motion on the floor? I'll be glad to second.
Hi, Steve.
Yeah.
Well, we can, again, that comment would, in the form of a motion, that we would move forward with a letter to the various state and city agencies.
I'd be happy to do that. So I think you kind of get the summary of what I'm getting at, but I make a motion to, you know, send some type of a document understanding the past of what we've been trying to you know, get in terms of information on the project and the different aspects of the project and the you know, repercussions of that, and so that we can make a decision in the best interest of the city that we can't make right now.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, Matt, we do have a basic construct based on all the information that we've sent out in the past to come up with one summarizing letter that would include many of the other previous documents that we've had as reinforcing data. So
we don't have sufficient information to enable us to complete our review at this time. I think that's the term that we've used in other applicants and other submittals.
Vote agree to put that letter together, and then we can send it out to the commission and let them vote on it electronically or look at it and see what we're sending.
Well, we can put some words on paper, and I can get it out to, if you want to do it that manner, or do you want to, I mean, we can work on this letter and then we can get this out to application review or to the whole commission as a whole.
To the whole commission, because the commission is voting on it as well. This is a combination meeting. So it would be a combination, and with the approval of the whole commission, that letter, whatever it comes out, turns out to be, to who it's being sent to and what the verbiage is.
Okay. All right. So we'll get something together, and I'll submit that to all the commission members for their, but not for their approval, for their additional comments. Sort of, if they want to wordsmith or they want to add comment, you know, please, you know, just make a suggestion. Well, I'll send out a construct in which we can then work on it together if we'd like.
All right. So there's a motion on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstains? All right, let's move forward on that. All right, next we have
John. So just to make plain, there are 5 points on the that we brought up. That is the relocation of the maritime vessel, the stationing of vessels at 68 Water, not station, but the dock Barclay at 6890 Water Street, utilization of Manresa Island public review, Eversource's transmission lines, and also the supplemental water quality data that they had promised us. So those are the points that we'll mention in this letter.
Absolutely. Okay.
And the supplemental water quality data is essential for us to complete our turbidity analysis.
That's correct.
Which they know that we're working on.
So we'll have all those points outlined and discussed, and I'll send it out to the commission members.
Fair enough.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right, let's move along. As far as the chairman's report is concerned, not much other than, you know, what we've all been discussing and are aware of and what is ongoing. I guess the boat that was confiscated or given to the city, deeded to the city, is up for auction now, and that's ongoing. Does anybody know if there's been a finalization of that?
It was sold yesterday, John. It went for about $24,000.
Last I heard it was like in the 7,500 range, and
John,
4,000 is nice, and maybe that money should go to the Harbor Commission.
I was going to report that in one of my reports.
Okay. And that's a good thing. And it's still a bargain at that price.
What's the status of the vessel that's aground on Tavern Island?
Not aware of it.
I think is that in the past, Alan? I thought that was removed.
It was there last week. It was like about a 30-foot sailboat.
Yeah, when I brought up last, the vessel was anchored off of Sheffield Island, and the jib unfurled in the storm. When was that storm? August 4th or whenever, first week of August, and it drifted onto Tavern Island. It is still there. Greg Scully wasn't, or he thought it was removed when we at the meeting last month, but it's still there. The sails are still in tatters. It's still beached on Tavern Island, and it hasn't come adrift with these high tides, so it's beached there.
It's well up on the property.
Yes.
So that's the second one in the last month.
What's the first one?
There was another boat that is at Cove right now that had significant damage that also I forget if it was the second week or third week of August, went up on the Tavern Island, and Cito ended up taking care of that.
There's a boat that was demasted that's at Cove now. I know both of these boats because they were in our marina at one point. That boat was, I believe, he wintered here. I believe he went to a city mooring in the harbor, and again, it looked like his jib unfurled in the storm, and it was demasted, and that was at Cove back in the middle of August. When I had my boat in there for service, and I saw it at that point.
Because there was significant damage to the keel and I believe the port side, but when I saw that getting towed in, it did have a mast. And I just know because I saw it at Cove, this morning or whatever. It's when you see Swanee on your left when you pull in, it's about 10 or 12 boats past it on the left, same side, backed up to the fence. But yeah, I don't know if maybe there was just two boats. That could easily be the case too.
Yeah. The Tavern Island boat it's been there since the storm. I was out past it this weekend as well.
Right.
So yes, that's still there.
Jeff, do you?
And
Sully's not here. Jeff, do you have anything that you want to bring into the mix?
Not that I can think of now. I might ask Greg. Stamford and Greenwich got inquiry. The harbor masters received inquiries from the Corps of Engineers national office about how those towns wished the Corps of Engineers to describe the ports of those cities. And so Greenwich, of course, isn't a port. Stamford has port activity. But what those towns did is provided to the Corps the harbor management jurisdiction, and asked that the Corps include that in their whatever their publication is going to be. So if I'm assuming Greg got a similar communication, we might want to respond, if he hasn't already, to the Corps of Engineers with a description of the boundaries of Norwalk Harbor to keep for their national records, or however they want to use that.
Do you want to follow up?
Not a big deal, but I'll ask Greg.
Yeah, follow up, please. And then whatever action needs to be taken, do it.
Yeah.
Or have them do it. Okay. Shellfish Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just really quickly, again, the Shellfish Commission would like to thank the Harbor Master and the Marine Division for preventing Swanee from doing damage to the harbor or the natural beds. It's good to have that off of Norwalk's hands. So there were some questions answered at the Shellfish meeting by the DOT, which for those of you who don't know, was also attended by Mr. Gruzwinski from DEEP. It is posted to the city website in its entirety, and perhaps before comments are submitted to Commissioner Dr. Pinto, you might want to take a look at that just for food for thought. The questions answered were the ones submitted by both commissions at the public meeting on June 16th, and then some subsequent ones that came out of intercommission consultation. So just like to ask perhaps that this commission might consider a later meeting time, given that the meetings are joint between ARC and the commission at large. I mean, it just especially considering the historical gravity of everything that's going on. I just think 1700 is a little bit early for people working. To that end, John, I can't hear you, John. John, you're muted.
The timing came about because of conflict with other city meetings. If you recall, we were given a limited amount of time. There was at least one meeting, I think we had to start at 4:30 because of timing, because of the length of what was on our plate. And we're mandated to finish, at least in the past we have been, as some of our meetings by 6:45. So I don't know, Brian, if you could give us some kind of heads up.
Yeah, I can with meetings, I can, I'll work with, it's the clerk's office setting up meeting times and arranging most of the meetings that take up a lot of the time slots are, committee meetings of common council, but I can reach out to them and get a better time for you guys if you want to discuss what time you'd prefer, and I'll work with them to get you guys a later meeting time.
Well, does everybody, because I know Pete will mind moving the meeting to 6 p.m. because he's usually sticking a fork in his mouth by that time. Is that okay with everyone else at 6 p.m.? Yeah. Considering that we may have to run to 8?
I'm good with that.
Does anybody have any issues with that?
6 p.m. is fine with me.
If you can explore, Brian, if we run into an issue and.
Yeah, I mean, we'll figure it out. If not, we'll just move days around. Not a problem.
Okay. All right. So good point, Steve.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, commissioners, and Brian. I just think that makes it a little easier for all of us to get on and be able to speak intelligently, not running out of work. To that end, in terms of scheduling, Shellfish Commission is on for October 1st. We're discussing perhaps postponing that a week just because we are swamped. And I think given the gravity of everything that's going on here, especially vis-a-vis this letter, I don't know if a week is enough time for us to comment intelligently on any feedback. Shellfishing is open in Norwalk. For those of you that are out there braving this wind, especially in smaller vessels like mine, and please patronize your local restaurants and eat Norwalk shellfish. And I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Steve. Dennis, I know you've been champing at the bit to.
Not really. Renewals for mooring applications are starting to slow down, as you can imagine. Continues to address any concerns and any issues that might come around. We have 51 approved applications and 29 applications under review. Which, all the applications, as I continually say, we review them. We send out an email listing missing documents and payments. An email will be sent to the Mansfield Rowayton Yacht Club and Norwalk Yacht Club looking for final payment for the season. Now, this is well beyond what our statute, our rules say. And every time I bring it up, I get the answer that the field is formed a lot later in the season than what's in our rules and regulations. I don't know how the date came about in our rules and regulations. Nice to be able to change that, but maybe with an earlier date, I might be able to get them to do it sooner. I was hoping it would be sooner this year. Sprite Island was right on the ball and got their check in and in a timely fashion. So I will send letter out, an email out, kind of explaining this is kind of late, that we're looking for. That's it for mooring committee. Under harbor safety, I have a marine police report. Unit is currently, this is from Sergeant Lepak. Unit is currently staffed by Sergeant Lepak and Officer Silva. Unit is working weekends until weather turns cooler, probably at least until October. Sailing vessel Swanee was sold by the city of Norwalk yesterday for $24,100. Also, there's no significant active cases to report. And that's the end of his report. And that's the end of my report.
I don't see John anymore.
He's offline.
Dennis, why don't you take over as vice chair?
Okay. Finance. Tony?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. We had a beginning balance of $21,682.05. We had expenditures of $2,745.12. Our revenue was from online mooring was $5. And our fund balance at 8/26, which is tonight, is that right? No, 23rd, excuse me, is 9/23, is $18,942.53. I received a bill from Mr. Stedman to pay his I don't want to say his bill for the first 6 months of this year, which comes to $7,140. Money well spent. I would like a motion to pay Jeff Stedman for that amount.
Motion.
Second that motion.
Make the motion.
I second that motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Do we have a unanimous decision? I guess we do.
Yes. Yeah.
Any abstentions or?
Against? Abstentions? I guess the motion passes.
Unanimously.
Okay, good. That's my report. Thank you.
Plans and recommendations, Jeff? You're muted, Jeff.
Yep. I was using my control space bar first, so I'm going to do this. All right, so plans and recommendation use fee. We had Wes Oliver meet with Total Marine on Monday of this week. That meeting went well. Cordial meeting, about half an hour. They have 35 slips, 35 rack storage. So a total of 70. He had some questions about where money goes and things like that, but he was more or less in agreement with what we're trying to do. He understands that everything's a pass-through. So the next meeting is going to be next week. I am going to be out of town next week. It's going to be on Tuesday for Total Marine. Alan Kitty will meet with them as well. And Dennis, you can certainly do that as well. I'll give you all the information. And again, those meetings were set up by Wes Oliver. So that's good. We're also going to try to meet with the Shellfish guys, Bloom and the like. Still no response from the Gardella group. So we're just going to continue to move forward with this, and then the plans and recommendation committee will have a meeting to discuss what our next plans are, and then draft a proposal recommendations to the commission, and then further that on to the city itself. Other than that, that's it. Yes, Jeff.
Have you talked with Divine Brothers at all? And the reason I bring that up is the city of Stamford has an ordinance for a harbor maintenance or harbor management fee that's paid by the commercial operators. So O&G has a big presence in Stamford Harbor, and then there's the scrap metal yards, and then there's an oil facility. But they pay a fee for every barge delivery that comes into the harbor, and that's pursuant to an ordinance that the Stamford Board of Representatives adopted, and that money is then just can only be used for purposes of harbor management, including some of that fee is used to pay overtime for marine police officers too, I believe. But I just wondered if there's been any discussion about Divine paying a barge fee. It wouldn't be a lot, but it would be, it's another harbor user that probably should be brought into the conversation.
Yes, Jeff, it's a good point. We have also discussed barge traffic as well as the commercial fisheries that we have here. So that is that too would be part of the entire plan. We haven't had a meeting with Divine yet, but it's a good point to bring up, and perhaps meet with them and get their opinion on things.
I apologize, my internet went out. I had to get it back up again.
Okay, John, we're finishing up plans and recommendations. Unless there's questions.
All right, we'll go on to newsletter and website, Alan.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that's become really readily available from working with Jeff and Wes Oliver on this harbor use fee project is, you know, people don't know what the commission does. I think it's something that sort of in my bailiwick. I could use whatever information you have about things that are interesting that affect the commission to go on our website and things like that, just to have more visibility. I did reach out to Josh Morgan at the city, the Seaport Association, and the Maritime Aquarium and said, look, we have a website, and anything going on with the harbor or water or programming, we'd be happy to, post on our website as a service to the community. And that's been crickets. I haven't heard back from any of those, had any response from any of those people. I'll go after Josh again because there should be some kind of communication coming from the city and also from the Maritime Aquarium and the Seaport Association. So I think that's an objective for us, is to really get get some more visibility within the community.
Rightfully so. I mean, we are the unsung heroes to a degree because we do so much and a lot of heavy lifting, but people don't realize how much we actually do.
That's correct. And the thing about it is, I get it's not very exciting work either. It's not something that gets a lot of interest, like relocating the maritime vessel and trying to put together a harbor use fee aren't things that we kind of want to put on the front burner, I don't think, right now.
So basically, Alan, I guess you want to put together a resume for the Harbor Commission.
No, I think that it's just important that when we do something that's benefits the community in a way people would see as beneficial, that we post something on our website about it.
Yeah,
that's all. I mean, I just think there's a lot of it's the things we're talking about, particularly with the walk bridge, are not terribly exciting things to be posting on a website, I view.
I mean, Alan, just to, to go back to what Jeff was talking about, I think that.
Hi, Matt.
Just to follow up, Alan, I think it's critical to, when we're talking about this user fee issue, the kind of pitfalls I've fallen into with the conversations I've had or started to have with some of the people is, well, what do you guys need money for? What do you mean? What are you doing that we're not aware of, and we're in the marine industry in Norwalk? What are you going to do for us, or what are you going to do for our clients, or whatever? So, I unfortunately, the sentiment that I got from some of these, off the cuff conversations with some of the locals was initially, yeah, sure, it's a pass through, no big deal, and now all of a sudden it's kind of come a little full circle now to the point where it's, well, what is it really necessary for? And, if the feds are going to do this, multiple, billion-dollar bridge, how are they going to let the area in front of it not be a navigable waterway? So we really shouldn't need to worry about it. Like, a bunch of other things have come up in some of these side conversations that I didn't expect. So I think the first phase is to get, to your point, a clear understanding of what the commission has on their plate to do right now, what they're annually involved with, what projects they've been involved with in the past, just to give some people who may know there's a harbor commission and have no idea what they do, some background, so that when we do go after these things and talk about a necessary upgrade for a boat and long range dredging fee and other associated tests and surveys and things like that, people have no idea that's even part of our to-do list.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good marketing tool, if nothing else, to have people understand.
Well, Matt, going back to my original statement, I mean, basically what we need to do is put together a curriculum vitae for the harbor. It's a selling, and I think we've had certainly information on that. We've done similar documents in the past to try to acquaint people with what we do. We've approached the Common Council. As a matter of fact, John, if you recall, we were going to meet with the Common Council and give them sort of an expose of the important issues that the Harbor Commission is confronted with, on the city's behalf.
Yeah.
That's certainly something that we could certainly keep.
Well, and I guess that comes down to the fact that we traditionally always have been reactionary instead of being progressive and having like a 5-year plan or a 3 to 5 year plan or a 2 to 3 year plan. We react rather than put out there what we think our needs should be and what we are looking forward to doing. Part of raising the money allows us the ability to do certain things that we hope to do in the future, but they need to be, disseminated more, lot better, and become part of a long-term goal and plan.
But we do have a standing charge, John. We have our standing committees. In other words, we have application review, we have boating and harbor safety, we have mooring. Those are standing committees. These are the day-to-day operations of the harbor. Then on top of that, then we have to deal with applications that come in from the outside. We're dealing with the state, interaction with the state, interaction with the federal, the federal government with regard to dredging projects, for that matter. So I think we can put together a reasonable document of what do we do, and what.
Yeah, but the harbor management plan in itself speaks to what our charge is to do big picture, but it doesn't delineate what our goals and aspirations and things that we're looking to do that we may have to burden the cost of, that we're looking at, like getting a vessel for the harbor master. Mm-hmm. The boat is ready to be junked. Mm-hmm. We couldn't even auction it because nobody buy it.
Some of these conversations come up with people like, oh, we have a harbor master. What does he do? I mean, it's really simple stuff like that, which is kind of embarrassing in a way. But the harbor master is just kind of equated with mooring assignments, and that's about it.
Incidentally, that harbor master boat belongs to the Shellfish Commission.
That's right.
We bought it.
I know.
So, just put that out there for just reach out to me if you have ideas of things that are to publish or put out there. But maybe we creative work ourselves. But the publishing, putting up the harbor management plan it's a pretty dense document that nobody's going to read. So it needs to be put into something more interesting. Jeff.
Well,
For years, we prepared an annual report of the commission's activities in the past year and what the goals were for the next year. We could get back to doing that.
That's
and
correct.
have that something that we could distribute to the other town commissions. And then on the first page of the city's website, when you go to government, there's a whole bunch of names of departments, and planning and zoning, for example, has its own. You click on planning and zoning, but harbor management isn't on that initial list of city departments and agencies. So you have to go to boards and commissions and then harbor commission. And so just simply adding that to the list of names on the first page, you'd think would have somewhat of a benefit. And if we were to develop a website or a web page just having to do with the walk bridge, where we could post the letters that we've sent to and the reports that we've written to the different agencies. Those are just a couple of ideas, but the annual report, I think, is something we should get back to doing.
I agree, Jeff.
Okay. Anything else, Jeff? Alan?
No, that's it.
All right.
Well,
Joe?
all of this is, sorry, all of this is good and true, but it doesn't, what we do, the 9 of us or however many are, doesn't really justify a use tax on the boats. I mean, if it's for dredging, that's the reason. That's what we got to talk about. Otherwise, or Greg Scully's boat, I mean, it's not his boat, but, the harbor master boat. But that justifies a budget. That justifies tax. What we do, I'm not getting paid. None of us are getting paid. There's no cost to anybody for that, even though we do a lot and we should make it known, and I'm not saying we shouldn't. But if we're talking about justifying a tax, that's something else entirely. My 2 cents. Thanks.
All right. Joe?
Mr. Chairman, you ready for me?
Yep.
Okay, we didn't have much that you aren't aware of since our last meeting. At our last meeting, however, since that meeting, several things have happened. I don't know if you've caught it in the newspaper. Dick Harris alerted me to it, that there have been 5 cases of people sent to hospitals with cases of Vibrio infection. That's something that can be carried by shellfish. And the Department of Health has alerted some of the private beaches around here to the presence of this in the Sound. As far as I know, it is not in Norwalk. And I specifically asked Tom Kloster if their lab could sample for it, and they said no. So any sampling has to be done upstate, probably at aquaculture. The other thing that happened that was significant, as you're aware of, we went from a water conservancy plan to a state of water emergency. And ironically, I had just sent a letter out again to the Common Council as well as to planning and zoning people, requesting that they severely consider the water capabilities of the Norwalk River in the planning of population for the city of Norwalk. And I think right after I started getting responses from that, Jim Bartley saw one of the golf courses in town watering their lawn, sent a letter to the mayor, and then the mayor declared a state of emergency. So I don't know how long this is going to last. There's not much water in the future, at least right now. So we'll see. That's it.
Okay. Nothing on bridges. Nobody's here from the public. Approval of the minutes.
Is John Crispo here?
Yes.
Yeah, John. Yeah, I had that one comment I sent to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, took care of it. And that was, so it's posted on the website.
So.
Yeah. Is it okay to send it out like a week before the meeting, or would you guys rather see it earlier than that? I mean, is the timing Any, does it make any difference?
Week is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. John, you got my comment as well, right?
Yes, I did. So closer to the meeting is better for you guys, huh?
Well, just a while just to review it and then send it back to you.
Right.
Yeah. No, so I get it sometimes like a week after, and I don't send it out to like a week and a half, a week before the meeting, so it's kind of fresh in everyone's memory. But I'll leave it up to you guys.
John, if I can make a request for you to use my home email address.
Yeah.
Can I give you that? All right, because you send it to my work email address, and oftentimes it,
Home email, okay.
So it's Pinto J at optonline.net.
Say it again, please.
Pinto J at optonline, OPTONLINE.net.
Okay.
Great, thank you, John.
Sure.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Don't move.
Accept the minutes as edited.
Do we accept the minutes?
We need to accept the minutes, okay. Somebody want to make a motion, please?
Make a motion to accept the minutes as edited.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Objections, abstentions? So moved. All right, adjournment, a motion.
All right, I'll make a
Okay.
Make a motion.
All right, well, nice meeting, guys. Talk
All
to
right.
you all soon. Ciao for now.
Take care.